So now I want to say a few things to the people in the private club. And I was thinking of what to start with. And one of the interesting things is, people are familiar with water fasts and juice fasts, but I don't think many people are familiar with spirulina fasts. So what's good about that, and how do you do it?
Well, if anybody's ever done a water fast, they will notice that the first couple days is quite a struggle to get through, especially if they've never done it before. The first 3 days, your body is eliminating and using all of the food that's in the digestive system. And during that emptying process and using up those carbohydrates, the body is getting screamed at by the bacteria that's in our system, saying more food, because we're feeding our gut. When you get to day 3, then if you can make it past day 3, then the body says, okay, there's no more reserves. We got to look for some food, and it will go look for fat to burn and convert that fat into food, energy. And once it does that, the energy that you feel, the fuel that you start using, burning from fat, is like jet fuel. It's much stronger, much more powerful than the carbohydrate fuel.
Has advantages over sugar, basically, right?
Yes, it's an amazing feeling when you switch over and you start.
But in the beginning, it's like a drug addiction, and you just want the sugar in some form.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And then once you get onto that fat burning protocol time, you can stay on that as long as you want until you get down to around 9 to 10% body fat. And then your body is going to start going, okay, we need to look somewhere else because we're running out of fat storage. We need to look for some muscle tissue to start burning. And that's the time you need to stop and don't get anywhere near that range. But the world record is like 384 days.
Okay, but when you say stop, you don't necessarily mean pile on the carbs. You mean eat some food.
Eat some fruit.
But it's somewhat?
Fruit.
Okay, so fruit has the available carbs right away, right?
Yes. You would stop a water fast, or basically, you'd stop a water fast with fruit, with watermelon, cantaloupe, honeydew. Watermelon is excellent. You want to ease yourself back into that. You just don't want to fill up your stomach after you stop a fast. You make yourself sick. You're going to feel horrible. It's everything has gotten a lot smaller in there, and you want to ease juice.
The whole fruit issue is really interesting because I know Brian Clement has told me many times that he thinks it's better not to eat fruit. I mean, he'll give in and let people eat some because they feel like they have to, but he said that he's getting much better results when he doesn't use any at all.
And I've heard that many times from him too, and we go to the other side of the coin with the Gerson therapy, treating cancer. They've been doing this for over 60 years. 3,500 calories of pure sugar from fruits and vegetables. Now, this is not refined sugar, but it's a lot of fruits and carrots and green vegetables.
Well, and Gerson will use some cooked food too, right? Like oatmeal and stuff.
Yeah, a little bit of cooked food. It's more about giving the body the energy it needs to fight the cancer. If you're lethargic and you just you don't have any energy, how you expect your body to fight that cancer for you?
Okay, so how do the raw food people get that?
I mean, understand that principle?
No, not get it that way. Obtain what you would have gotten from the oatmeal if you don't eat any cooked food.
I'm not.
Okay, like what you just said was that the part of the Gerson idea, and I agree with it, is the reason they add oatmeal to the carrot juice and everything is to give the body energy from the slow release carbs in the oatmeal. But if you're 100% raw food and you want to not be missing that, what are the carbs you use instead?
I would, from my perspective, I would say 100% raw food lifestyle is the best. That's the most optimum by far. I mean, that's the pinnacle. When you even add 10% of cooked food, it's almost exponential. It's almost like going from a hurricane 1 to a 2.
Yeah, or an earthquake 1 to a 2.
Yeah.
But I'm not asking that question. What I'm saying is, within that raw food universe that you just said is what you consider the best, what's your feeling about carbs? Do you need the amount that most people think you need, or do you try to do with very little? Or you talk about, some of the raw food teachers say, well, lettuce has carbs in it, raw zucchini has carbs, and it has very little compared to, like honey or dried fruit or oatmeal or something like that. So when you're into that raw food mentality, does your idea of the carbs you need decrease?
Well, if you're eating raw foods, you're using a much higher percentage of the nutrients than you would in cooked food.
And does that mean that you don't need the heavy carbs? For example, Brian Clement says, don't eat cooked food and don't eat fruit. Okay, so within that, yeah, it's available, but what's the understanding of the needed carbohydrates within that?
Well, Brian talks about when you're fighting a disease like cancer, that you should not eat fruit.
Right.
And his understanding is that the fruit today is, especially apples, are 50 to 60 times higher in sugar than they were 1,000 years ago in nature. And that's
right.
True, because all the apples that we consume today are sweet, and they're not supposed to be sweet. They're crab apples are bitter. That's how
apples are a sour fruit, basically.
Apples are a sour fruit. When you bite into an apple, you shouldn't have a sweet sensation. So, from that perspective, I agree. And sometimes it's hard to get a lot of people that are fighting disease to do the extreme that they really need to do in order to heal themselves. So
because they see it as extreme, I guess.
They see it as extreme. So you can have more of a success if you go to the 80 or 90% of the extreme than you can to try to get everybody to go 100%.
Are you familiar with what Dr. Morse is doing?
Yes.
He's the other side. He says just everything with fruit.
Yes.
He doesn't do it, but that's what he says to do.
Right. I do 1 month in June, July, when the mango season hits in Florida.
Yeah.
We'll do 2, 3, 4 weeks of mangoes. That's it. Nothing else. We have a couple farms here that have 40, 50, 60 varieties of mangoes. There's one tree that's over 100 years old, and it's just you're in just euphoria land. It's amazing, the flavors of all these different mangoes.
Yeah.
You can't pass it up because it's only here for 3 weeks and it's gone, and you don't see it again for another year. So we take advantage of those, and I believe in those mono diet kind of. We traveled around the land, and sometimes we didn't eat for 2 or 3 days, and then all of a sudden we see a tree with some fruit on it. We go over and sit underneath that tree for a couple of days, and that's all we eat, because we don't know when we're going to find the next one. And the body is really designed with the enzymes it has available to eat a certain food at once and not mix all these different actions together. So
you've been doing 100% raw food for like 18 years or something like that, right?
Yes, and I'm not talking smoothies. I'm talking juices. When I'm saying people, smoothie is a recreational, once in a while thing to do. But I do not recommend anybody do smoothies. You're mixing up a whole bunch. You're creating a chemical reaction. You're creating an oxidation. Brian Clement says 90% of the nutrients are destroyed in 90 seconds in a blender.
I've heard of that. Yeah, especially the really powerful blenders, right?
That's right. And that if people want more powerful, especially in this country, the bigger the better, the faster the better.
Yeah, yeah.
So juicing is the complete opposite of that. That's where the healing is. A slow, masticating, stainless steel juicer, if you can get one. I mean, the one I have is $1,600, and it's my baby. It's my life force. It's way more important than my refrigerator.
You can get a pretty good one for about $250 from Omega.
Yes.
That's a slow-moving
single
juicer.
auger. It's a plastic one.
Yeah, yeah, it works pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm still interested when you're doing 100% raw food. How much do you figure that you need carbohydrates, and where do you get them from? Because if it's from greens, you're basically saying, well, you don't need very much carbohydrates.
Well, the spirulina is 23% carbohydrates.
Okay.
That's a lot of energy right there.
Yeah.
There's about 350 calories in 1 jar, in 1 pound, and I fasted for a month in 2017. And it's documented on the website. I did a full blood test on day 1, June 1st, and then June 30, I did another blood test, and that's all I did was 1 pound or 1 jar a day for 30 days, nothing else but water.
Huh,
and
interesting.
The biggest change, my blood test was perfect when I started. The biggest change was a 33% increase in my iron. And that was directly related by the spirulina. My B12 went down a little bit. So
you lost some weight, I would imagine.
I'm sorry?
You lost some weight, I would imagine.
About 4 pounds, 5 pounds. My body, I'm 10%, 9 to 10% body fat. I mean, I don't have very far to go before I'm, start burning muscle.
Right.
So it showed me that I was getting, on 350 calories, I survived. I had tons of energy. I was working outside on the farm in the Florida heat, 4, 5, 6 hours a day. I wasn't sitting inside an air conditioning. I was outside in this heat.
Minimal weight loss, actually.
And minimal weight loss, and it came early, and then it balanced out in the last couple of weeks. And I felt I could have kept going and going and going. I didn't seem like I needed to switch over and have other food. It just became kind of boring, and I love other food. So So how does that raw food perspective look at things like dried fruit and honey, stuff like that, concentrated carbs? Well, see, that's another thing that I agree with Brian with that type of sugar. That I don't agree with the honey and the agave and the dried fruit like the dates and that is. Like a date would be good for an athlete if he was going to have a few and then go run a marathon, because they'll burn it off really quick.
Yeah.
But the average person shouldn't be eating the raisins and the dates. They're first of all, they can rot out your teeth.
I've seen that a lot.
Out in the teeth, and that's going to do some serious damage.
Yeah.
That's the extreme of the fruit. That's really concentrated sugar. Something that we should stay away from. You
could probably say the same thing about honey, I would imagine, because even though it's got nutrients in it, it's pretty high sugar.
Pretty high sugar, right? And we want to stay away from the fructose. We are glucose creatures. That's what we fuel. That's our fuel of choice. And fructose is not what we thrive on.
And that's what's in basically even fresh fruit is fructose.
Fresh fruit is fructose, and that's one of the reasons why Brian does say that 10% of fruit by weight per day is good if you're healthy. So the people that are struggling, it's I've seen. I've been around Hippocrates and supported Hippocrates and followed that lifestyle for over consciously for 12 years.
Yeah.
Because that's when I learned about it. But in the last couple of years, I spent a week with Dr. Patrick Vickers at the Gerson Institute, and I did everything, did the full protocol, and just felt off the charts amazing. So I think both of them have a good. Both of them are great. I think that the Gerson is a little bit better at really digging deep into the treating cancers than Hippocrates. Hippocrates is in the United States, and it's a little bit difficult to say everything that he wants to say, whereas Patrick, Gerson is in Mexico.
Yeah, so you can't really talk about natural cures of cancer in the U.S., but
right.
In Mexico they're harassed a little bit, but nothing like the same.
Right.
So GersonInstitute.com is where people could find out about that. And GersonClinic.com. And when you were down there, how much of their protocol at that point was cooked food for the people there?
It's almost like a buffet style. You can choose what you want to. They don't prepare your plate for you. You pick what you want. So you could do 100% raw if you wanted to.
What did you do when you were down there?
So I did about 10 juices a day.
Okay.
And then I did about 5 of the coffee enemas a day. And
five of those a day. That's a lot. 5
coffee enemas a day. And so it's every 2 to 3 juices you do an enema.
Wow.
So as soon as you wake up in the morning, at 6 o'clock in the morning, the nurse is knocking at your door and ready with your coffee. And you go do your enema, and then you come out, and when you come out of the bathroom, you have your carrot juice ready for you. And then about 30 to 45 minutes after that, they're ready for breakfast. And then there's orange juice at breakfast, fresh squeezed orange juice. And there's oatmeal.
Okay.
And then there's I think there's a fruit plate. And that's about it. And then you're immediately it's almost time for your next coffee enema.
Wow. Yeah, I remember that Max Gerson, when he was still in Germany in the 30s, I think it was, before he had to run away from the Nazis completely, he was finding that, the cancer patients in general have a hard time with intense pain, and they start taking heavy drugs that help kill the patient, basically, but they dull the pain a little bit. And he found that by giving so many enemas, people wouldn't even believe it, the pain was eliminated, which was very interesting.
Well, there's so much toxins that get released when you flood the body with these juices that you have to remove those toxins from the body, or the toxins overwhelm and can cause a headache and pain and all this. So it's
maybe it's the acidic nature of the toxins. It's just
pulling them out, get them out, pull them out, get them out.
Yeah, and the body knows if the gut is empty, it can dump stuff in there.
Yes, and stimulating that glutathione in the liver is is very, very, very powerful with the coffee.
Right. So I think it's great. It's going to be hard for people with no money, but that's one of the reasons I'm looking at the frozen application, because if they can afford one jar and keep it for a while, they don't even have to use a whole ice cube at once, right? They could break it in half or something, make it last longer.
That's right. Any amount is better than nothing. And the NASA did a study in 2012 when they were doing this research to find the most perfect food for the astronauts in space. And they discovered that 1 pound of spirulina is equal to 1,000 pounds of fresh vegetables. And that's just an amazing. It's so.
Wow, I'm just absorbing that.
Yeah, to comprehend that is just
1,000 to 1 spirulina to vegetables.
So that's 58 pounds of vegetables and 1 spoonful of spirulina.
Wow.
It just kind of blows your mind. It's like, how can that be possible? And I said to myself, how is that? And I said, you know what, I'm juicing all the time. Let's take some juice, vegetable juice, celery and cucumber, put it under the microscope and look at it.
Yeah.
And we did that. And we looked around, and you're moving the slide, and you mostly just see clear liquid. It's really, you don't see any substance at all.
It has a lot of water in the juice.
Most water. It's intracellular water that, you're rupturing the cells, so it's the water that was inside the cells.
It's good water, but it's water.
Right. So then we said, why don't we take a drop, of the spirulina, put it under the microscope, which we do all the time in the lab, but it just, our biologists are always looking at it. But it was just this moment where we decided to do a comparison.
Yeah.
And 1 drop of the spirulina when you look at that after studying the vegetable juice, and as soon as you look at the microscope, you're like, in one drop, you're like, wow, this is like looking at the universe. One drop has thousands of cells, and every cell is like a little tiny water balloon, full, complete, whole vegetable.
Now, if you just...
I got it.
If you just scoop a jar full of water out of your pond before the straining and concentrating process, then it would look more like vegetable juice, right? Because
it would be hundreds of times more, just if I scooped it out.
Even unscreened?
Sunscreen, sunscreen.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So it's much more dense than any juice.
Yeah, even 250 pounds and 10,000 gallons of water.
Okay. So when you're getting that, I mean, it must make you look at nuts and seeds different, because those are normally seen by a lot of raw food people as major amino acid, protein, mineral sources. But you think you get so that you don't even need those at all, or what's your feeling?
I used to eat a lot of nuts and seeds, and I very rarely do I have them anymore. I felt they started to bother me a little bit. And the more I started to learn about the quality, there's a lot of molds that are on.
Oh, that's interesting.
Seeds, and I think the mold is pretty high around in Florida because it's so humid.
Yeah.
So maybe I was a little bit more sensitive to it, ingesting it instead of But it just when I stopped, I've been zero nuts and seeds. I mean nuts for almost a year now, and I feel so much better.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, it's lighter and very clear breathing. I definitely feel like it was affecting me. Maybe I had a little allergy to the.
So some of the raw food people, if they want to build up muscle mass and get a lot stronger, they feel like they have to have nuts and seeds. What would you say to them? And it's true. I have to mention one thing, that I've met a lot of the raw food people that actually do, 100% raw food. A lot of them are very frail, and they feel like they're birds, like you could pick them up and there's no solid mass there. And I think a lot of them try to make up for that with nuts and seeds.
Yeah, almost all the raw vegan restaurants, juice bars, cafes, most of what they serve in there is made out of nuts.
Yeah.
It's hard to go into the raw food lifestyle and not be just kind of inundated with nut-based food choices.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. You get so much, but there's a big difference between the standard nuts that you would find in like a can in the store. Versus raw nuts.
Truly raw and organic, yeah.
Unpasteurized, which are almost impossible to find.
There is one source that is really good for that.
California, yeah.
No, in Maine.
In Maine, raw unpasteurized almonds?
Not just, they don't grow them in Maine, but they bring them from Italy and Spain where they're still legal.
Yes.
And they source about 10 or 15 other nuts and seeds, and they'll tell you the temperature that they're processed at, and they're all organic, and the guy's honest and really good. So if you ever need to tell somebody, that's the safest source that I've ever found.
Okay.
And they're a good company. They have high ethics.
Yeah, good information.
But what I've noticed is as your body gets purer, what you need changes. And
it does. Absolutely, 100% it does. I mean, I've definitely gone through stages where I was doing, I was doing smoothies for 2 or 3 years, 15 years ago. I was following David Wolf and doing all his concoctions like it was I found euphoric land and
the NutriBullet.
The NutriBullet, right? I mean, I didn't get. It was a stage that I had to kind of go through and learn, and I learned a lot, and I don't go there anymore.
And he's doing a lot of the powdered superfoods and stuff like that.
Yes.
But you get to a point where your body says these powders don't feel good at all.
They don't, and I think I always go to knowledge, I love learning. I'm constantly researching and learning all the time. Like, the more we learn, the more we know how much we don't know.
One of the reasons I'm interested in the protein in spirulina and other things like that is that I've talked to a lot of people that wanted to be strength athletes who are, looking at raw veganism. And I haven't found one of them that has been able to do it yet. And I was talking about it to Dr. Morse because he's been on our show. And the people he recommended are all on cooked food. That's how they're doing it. And the ones that aren't they feel great, but they're very light. And, if somebody was really wanting to get into something that required a lot of muscle mass, I still haven't found how you're supposed to do that. And maybe you can't. Maybe it doesn't matter. But
There's definitely the world's strongest man, second, that won the silver medal in the Olympics. He's a vegan.
Yeah, but it's cooked food.
It's cooked food, right? And we kind of have to look at the extreme of eating the cooked meat diet.
Well, yeah, and what's really interesting about that is when they train an athlete for a superhero role in a movie, it's always the same that they've come down to. Meat, mostly chicken, cooked vegetable like broccoli, and a little brown rice. And they do nothing but that for months. And they temporarily create these really powerful, beautiful-looking athletes, but they can't sustain it in general. And it does toxify the body, and eventually they can get diseases and things like that. But they get this beautiful, like, superhero ability and physique. And I haven't found, just experimentally, a way to do that with raw food. But I'm wondering what the potential in that direction is if you learn the details of how to do it. I don't know if it's possible.
I think that we have to look at nature and say, where are we supposed to be? Size, weight, bone structure, what is healthy? We have this perception that we're all supposed to be big, huge, muscle-bound creatures like gorillas, and we're not. I mean, gorillas eat all plants all day long in the wild, and they can pull down a tree, and a baby gorilla will kill the strongest human with one.
Yeah, they're like chimpanzees. Even aside from gorillas, are like 6 times as strong as people.
Yeah, and, so they don't eat any cooked food. Zero.
And they don't look like bodybuilders, but they're really strong.
Wow, really, really strong, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I go into the gym, and some of these big, huge guys will put 1,000 pounds on the, on the
leg press or something. Yeah.
Press. And they'll get off, and they'll start taking them off from me because I want it next. And I'll say, no, just leave it there. It's good. And they'll sit there, and they'll watch me. I'm like, how in the heck are you doing that? You're like half my size.
Right. In other words, the appearance doesn't necessarily correlate with the strength.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Okay, so I guess bottom line is people looking at cancer things can check out GersonClinic.com, and then the people who want to learn more about the spirulina can go to Raw Living Spirulina or rawlivingspirulina.com and start learning what the difference is between that and the stuff in the stores.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Well, I'll keep telling people about what you're doing, and it's nice of you to take the time. I know you're a little busy during the day, so hope it didn't mess up the schedule too much.
Thanks, Tim.
Not at all. Thank you.